You need therapy, Nick. Your mind is not okay. Those words from my mother hit me like a punch to the chest, leaving me breathless. My entire body seemed to freeze. Each word, each syllable felt like a sharp blade cutting into my mind, making it impossible for me to understand. My rational mind couldn't process these words. How could they say this to me? The people I had sacrificed everything for, the ones I thought would be my steadfast support after 8 years away from home. I stood frozen, eyes wide, staring at them, unable to say a word. I couldn't believe what was happening. After all the years I spent in the military, living through hardships, sacrificing for my family, I thought that when I came back, I would be welcomed with warm hugs and the love I deserved. But no, when I came home, I had to face the painful and bitter truth. What I thought was family love, what I thought was kinship, turned out to be nothing but lies, words carefully crafted to hide the truth. They said I needed therapy, that I had psychological problems. Those words hit me hard. How could they say that when I had been sending money home every month for the past 8 years, just so they could live better? During those years, I lived in hardship, saving every penny, enduring hunger, sleepless nights to complete my duties, but I always believed everything I did was for the family. I didn't regret any of the sacrifices I made because I believed they needed help, that they were struggling, that they needed me. But now, standing before them, I realized that everything I thought was unconditional sacrifice was just a game for them. My parents, the ones I thought would always stand by my side, were living a life of plenty without a care in the world. They bought new cars, sent their grandchildren to private schools, traveled without a second thought about me. They used the money I sent to improve their lives, while I thought I was helping them through their difficulties. I couldn't believe my eyes. I couldn't understand how they could do this. The happy family photos on vacation, the expensive shopping receipts I accidentally discovered. All of those were like a cold splash of water to my face. They weren't struggling like I thought. They were living a full life, while I was just a tool for them to use, a financial provider for their comfortable lives. I felt like a fool, like someone being exploited without realizing it. And then they started blaming me. "You don't understand, we're just trying to live well," they said. They used every possible method to make me feel guilty, to make me think I was the one who didn't understand, the one who couldn't empathize with their situation. But I couldn't accept that. How could I accept this when they were the ones hurting me in this way? I had spent my youth in the military, sacrificed everything for the family, and yet they turned their backs on me, blaming me as if I were the one who was abnormal. The feeling I had at that moment is beyond words. My whole body felt torn apart, each of their words like a knife cutting into my heart. Everything I had believed in, everything I had given, I now realized was just an illusion. They didn't need me, they only needed my money. And now they were trying to make me feel like I was the one with the problem, like I was mentally disturbed. I couldn't accept that. I wasn't the one with the problem, they were the ones who had deceived me. When I graduated from high school without hesitation, I decided to join the military. I thought it was the only way I could do something meaningful, not just for myself, but for my family. At that time, I was only 20 years old, with nothing but youth, passion, and patriotism. I didn't think much about the hardships that would come. I just knew that my family needed me to do everything I could to help them overcome a difficult life. As soon as I enlisted, I began sending money home every month. It wasn't an easy decision, but I believed that if I could help my family, they wouldn't have to struggle like I thought. I didn't hesitate to send money to them because I thought they needed it. Every month, I sent $2,000, totaling more than $200,000 over the 8 years. I didn't keep anything for myself, it was all for the family. Even though life in the military was tough, I had to live in deprivation, lacking everything. I never thought about saving anything for myself. From scarce meals to sleepless nights and the challenges I faced, I only thought about the family and the joy of knowing that I was helping them. I believed that my family was struggling. My parents were getting older, my siblings were still in school, and I thought they truly needed my support. I thought they were fighting through life, that those difficult months were never easy, and that only I could help them get through. So, no matter how hard it was, I continued sending money home, thinking I was doing the right thing, fulfilling the responsibility of a son. But when I came back, when I stepped into the house after all those years away, I discovered a truth that I could not believe. After everything I had done, my family was not struggling at all. Not only were they not struggling, but they were living in comfort while I lived frugally, enduring each day. New cars, expensive vacations at luxury resorts, high-end items I could only dream of. Their grandchildren were enrolled in private schools, the kind of places I had only seen in advertisements. When I saw those vacation photos, the expensive shopping receipts that I accidentally discovered, I couldn't believe my eyes. How could this be? I had lived in hardship, never buying anything for myself, not daring to spend a single dollar just to send money to help my family. And yet they, the people I trusted, were living a comfortable life without any struggles. They had used the money I sent as a financial source to enhance their own lives. I couldn't understand. I had sacrificed my youth in the military, those dark nights, the challenges that no one understood, all because I thought my family needed help. Yet they used what I gave them to live luxuriously, to have things I could never have. Expensive trips, lavish meals, expensive items, those were things I couldn't even dream of, while I only sent money to help them live well. When I faced them, when I asked about the things I had seen, their answers only caused me more pain. "You don't understand, we're just trying to live well," they said. They didn't apologize, didn't explain, just said it as if everything I had done was meaningless. They blamed everything on me, saying that I didn't understand their situation. But how could I understand when I was the one who had spent my entire youth in the military, sending money to them, thinking I was helping, while they were living a life of comfort that I was completely unaware of? What hurt even more was when they began to make up a story that I had psychological issues, that I needed therapy. They used my weakness, something they had helped build up over the years, to turn me into a madman to make sure I couldn't fight back. These words hit me like a punch in the face. How could they say that? How could they do this to me when I had sacrificed everything for this family? Everything I had done, all my sacrifices, now I realize were just a deception. They had exploited me, used me as a tool to get what they wanted. And I, all this time, had trusted that I was doing the right thing for my family. Everything started to become clear one evening when I came home after a long day of work. I walked into the living room, where the old wooden table stood in the middle of the room, the place where we used to gather as a family. Suddenly, my eyes caught sight of the travel photos of my parents. These weren't family photos taken during holidays or family reunions. These were vacation photos taken during luxurious trips at resorts with blue beaches and lavish meals. They were taken in places I had never been, and I couldn't understand why they were in the house. I stopped, looked carefully at each photo, and a strange feeling crept into my mind. I could see the bright smiles on my parents' faces, a smile that I thought I would receive when I came home after all these years of sacrifice. But now, looking back, I didn't feel any warmth from those photos. They only made me feel more pain. How could there be these photos when I had sacrificed every penny, sending money home each month, thinking that my family was struggling? Suddenly, I discovered a pile of shopping receipts scattered on the table. These receipts were not for everyday expenses, but for expensive items, things I had never seen in the house, things I couldn't even imagine when I was struggling to send money home. Expensive clothes, the latest sportswear, receipts for expensive vacations I was unaware of. Everything seemed like a mirror reflecting my image, an anonymous soldier who had lived frugally, sacrificed every penny to send home for the family to live better. But looking at these receipts, I couldn't stop asking myself, how could the people I trusted live in such deception? The truth can't be hidden forever. This feeling swelled inside me, making it impossible for me to sit still. I decided to uncover the truth, to ask the neighbors and friends I had known for years. They were the ones who had witnessed my family's true life over the years. These people knew the situation better than anyone, and I needed them to confirm it for me so I wouldn't have to live in this confusion anymore. After asking around, everyone I spoke to told me that my parents were not struggling at all. They lived in a beautiful house, shopped for whatever they wanted, and went on vacation every year. Everything I had no idea about for the past 8 years. They were not struggling. They weren't living in hardship like I thought. They were living in prosperity, while I, an anonymous soldier, had to work tirelessly, live in hardship, just so that my family could have a better life. I couldn't take it anymore. I decided to confront my parents. I could no longer stay silent. An overwhelming sense of anger and helplessness filled me as I walked into the living room. My parents were sitting there, looking at me with calm faces as if nothing had changed. I looked at them and I couldn't keep my composure anymore. My emotions exploded and I couldn't pretend anymore. "What's going on?" I asked, my voice choked, but I tried to stay firm. "What did you do with the money I sent every month? How have you been living all these years? I thought you were struggling, and now I find out that you are not lacking anything." Their response only made me more disappointed. My parents didn't apologize, didn't look embarrassed. They just spoke to me coldly, as if I were the one in the wrong. "You don't understand, we're just trying to live well," my father responded, his voice pushing me away. Those words were like a slap in the face, making me feel like a fool, someone who didn't have enough sense to realize they were living in lies. I had sacrificed everything, I had worked hard for so many years, and now I get these words. They didn't stop there. They continued to say that I didn't understand their situation, that I was lacking understanding. They started blaming me, making me feel like I was the one at fault. And in a final attempt to protect themselves, my parents said I needed therapy, that I had a mental disorder, that I wasn't okay. These words choked me. How could they say that to me? How could they blame me when I had done everything for them? Finally, I realized something. They wanted me to feel unstable, so I couldn't fight back. They wanted to ruin my credibility, to make sure I no longer had the right to speak. And painfully, they succeeded. Their words made me feel like I was no longer myself, like I truly had a problem. I couldn't continue living under this manipulation. Each day that passed, I felt like a puppet dragged through the darkness of their lies and deceit from my own family. I had sacrificed too much. Over the past 8 years, I had lived a life filled with hardship, sacrifice, and exhausting work in the military, all just to send money home for my family, so they could live better. But now, when I look back, I see myself as nothing but a fool exploited, manipulated. When I realized the truth, I felt like I had shattered. It wasn't just about money, it was about respect, about family bonds, and the values I had always believed in. I thought everything I did, all my sacrifices, had meaning. I thought my family needed me, that they needed my help to get through the hard times. But now I realize it was all lies. The words my parents said, their actions, made me feel as though I had been living in a blind shell all these years. I couldn't go on living like this, so I decided to end everything. I couldn't let myself be exploited and manipulated any longer. I couldn't live a life where I was always the one sacrificing, but never receiving any respect in return. I stopped sending money immediately. Every penny I had carefully saved and sent home was now gone. I closed all linked accounts, leaving nothing for them. I couldn't let them continue using my money to live in deception. I had done everything I could, sacrificed everything for them, and now it was time to think about myself. I hired a lawyer, not to attack them, but to protect myself. I needed protection. I needed an escape from these ties. I decided to leave. No hesitation, no second thoughts. I had lived in this house long enough, in the shadow of meaningless sacrifice. My whole life had been tied to the family, but now I understood that those sacrifices had no value if they were not respected. I severed all ties, decisively left the house, and walked away from everything I had been attached to for so many years. I couldn't live in such an environment anymore. It wasn't that I hated them. It wasn't that I wanted revenge. I simply couldn't live in this lie any longer. In the final conversation, when I faced my parents, I felt nothing but coldness. I looked into their eyes and said, my voice cold but certain, "From now on, I will live for myself. If anyone needs therapy, I don't think it's me." These words came out of my mouth like a release. I didn't need to apologize. I didn't need to feel guilty anymore. I had spent too long living for people who didn't deserve it, and now I had to live for myself. At that moment, I realized something I had never understood before. I was not betraying my family. It was my family that had betrayed me. The love I had given them, the sacrifices I had made, I now realized were nothing but exploitation. I didn't need revenge. I didn't need to answer to their slanders or accusations. I just needed to save myself. I couldn't keep living in their shadow. It wasn't that I lacked love or filial piety, but I had been too blind, too trusting of empty promises. Now I had freed myself, not by seeking revenge or justice, but by living for myself, protecting myself, and learning to love myself. Everything I had done, all my sacrifices, were now just the past. And I knew I would never go back. After deciding to end everything, I began looking for a new job. I no longer dreamed of a stable job in the military, no longer thought about continuing to live in sacrifice for the family, but instead focused on my own future. I had spent too many years taking care of others, forgetting about myself. Now it was time to live for me, to start over, to rebuild the life I had lost over all those years. I no longer lived with the worry of having to send money every month, no longer felt guilty when thinking about refusing to help my family. I began to realize something important. Stopping the help wasn't ingratitude. It was a way to protect myself from exploitation, a way to not become a meaningless sacrifice. I understood that if I kept living in worry for them, I would lose myself forever. On my first day at the new job, I felt a major change in my soul. Everything was no longer a long series of tiring, hopeless days. I started to feel that I could take control of this life, create opportunities for myself. The new job wasn't easy, but at least it didn't make me feel like I was just a tool for others to exploit. I started over from scratch, but I felt happy because, at last, I could rebuild my life without living in the shadow of manipulation. As for my family, they had to face difficulties they had never had to endure. No longer receiving money from me, they had to fend for themselves. That was something they had never had to do because I had always been the main financial source. But now they no longer had my protection. They had to face the truth. They couldn't rely on me forever. When I was no longer there to help, they began to feel the true difficulties of life. Not only that, but their lies about the family's struggles were also exposed. Outsiders began to realize what was really happening, and they were ostracized by the community. They were no longer seen as the respected people I once thought they were, and they had to face the consequences of their actions. During that time, I also learned an important lesson. Family ties are not about unconditional sacrifice without respect. Family ties must be built on mutual respect, not exploitation. I couldn't continue living in a family where love and care were just excuses to exploit me. And I understood that sometimes protecting myself is not a selfish act, but the only way to maintain respect for myself. From that day on, I began to love myself more. I no longer let others manipulate me. I no longer lived with guilt, no longer felt the need to please everyone around me. I learned to put myself first because I understood that if I didn't love and protect myself, I wouldn't be able to bring goodness to others. My life now belongs to me. I have learned how to set boundaries and live in respect, not only for my family, but for myself as well. And although at times I feel lonely, I know this is the only path to rediscovering myself so I can live a full life, free from anyone's exploitation. Have you ever been manipulated by your family just because you were kind? Do you think you should forgive betrayal from your loved ones? Like, comment, subscribe to support those who dare to set boundaries and protect themselves.